Okay.
So I'm going to say this is one of our second monthly sessions. The first time it was just me and Jackie,
Yeah.
and then we end up finding Marcus, who came on and did a 45-minute talk. Um, this session I think we brought on because I met Lauren on Monday when I was doing one of the Haringey family support. And one thing I always say to a lot of people is that if you are running a mainstream service or even an autistic service, is if you get that phone call and somebody says, I need help, would you just say, send them to another organization, or would you just say, come down and help? I think what made it special for me was that Lauren actually got the information from the National Autistic Society page in regards to the Black, Asian, Minority, ethnic section. So it shows that why it's important, if your organization is supporting the autistic community, to make sure that your information is geared to all communities, but at the same time it's making sure you're signposting and not just trying to repair what you can't do. So what I'm
Right.
going to do, because obviously I'm going to just be here just to support, I'm going to make sure just that Jackie is autistic as well. And I think for Lauren as well, it's about making sure that the two of them can actually talk and just have a little discussion. So I may come in from time to time. My son's going to come and peep. Thank you,
Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
Hey,
That we're
Hello.
live.
hi.
Yeah. So basically, as you can see, that there's no rehearse. This is just us, just talking. And if
Yeah.
you do want to ask Lauren a question, please, as I said to everybody, the reason why we're doing this as a webinar, we don't want to overwhelm Lauren because it's her first webinar and we want her to feel comfortable. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is, Jackie, welcome.
Thank
Lauren,
you.
welcome. And
Thank
as I
you.
said, Jackie, you can start off the question.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Lauren, I'm so glad that you agreed to come join our talk tonight. I kind of feel like we're just having a girls' night out, and that's what I'm hoping that you kind of feel like. Got my water and everything, so I'm ready. But I just wanted to talk to you because I was so very happy to meet you the other day. I'm always happy to meet someone, especially someone who's finding out that they're autistic and that somebody that, looks like me,
Hmm.
So that means a lot to me. And I guess what I really want to know is, first of all, how did you come to deciding to get the assessment for autism? What series of events led up to that, if you don't mind sharing that?
So, in my family, on my maternal side, my youngest brother was diagnosed at the age of 4. That subsequently led to my sister, one of my younger sisters, being diagnosed. I believe she was 16 at the time. And the sister that was diagnosed, we are so similar in many ways that I said, okay, maybe this is something that I need to explore. And then I went to my GP. I was referred for I think it's like an assessment. It's like a pre-assessment. And it was like,
Hmm.
okay, you've got several factors. Let's go through this process and see if we can get a diagnosis for you, see if this is the right thing. So that's how it came about, through
Wow.
younger members of my family being diagnosed, leading
Okay.
me to then feel like maybe this is something that's more fitting to me as a
That's very common.
diagnosis.
That's very
Mm.
common, especially with women. Oftentimes, like I got diagnosed at the age of 46, and it was kind of odd because I was seeking therapy after having endured a lot of childhood trauma after my
Hmm.
parents passed. And I just wanted to answer some questions as to why I was treated the way that I was, and why did I act the way that I did. Plus, I noticed that was a lot of similarities between me and my son. But the really main thing was my friends and other people that would see us. They would say, I've seen other parents that have autistic kids, and I've just never seen them relate to their child like you do. It's just like you have some kind of understanding that doesn't make sense. Have you ever
Mm.
thought, maybe? So when I went into therapy, I went through several different assessments, if you will. It was my understanding that later on that they were actually assessing me to rule out Asperger's, but I actually, in fact, got the diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah. So I went to a behavioral specialist. What kind of person actually did your assessment?
So I believe it was a specific team. Actually, they are called the ADHD and Asperger's team. So they come under,
Okay.
I believe, the mental health aspect of the NHS trust.
Right.
So my GP referred me directly to the correct team, I guess.
Yes.
And it was a direct connection from there.
Okay. And what do you remember, like, what was the assessment? How many days? Mine took 3 days.
I believe mine was 3 days also. It was 3 separate sessions. There were some questionnaires that we were given that it was advised to be filled out with somebody who could give a clear picture of you as a child, or myself as a child. So that would have been my mum at the time. So she helped me through the application, filling out the application. She also attended the sessions, the assessments with me. I don't really remember specifically, but it was just a lot of almost like interviewing, to ask questions related to the condition. Obviously, they've got their criteria, and it was more to see where I fit into that criteria, if at all. So that was the process here. Within my process, it was actually the psychologist that diagnosed me. At the end of my process, he said, have you ever considered seeking a diagnosis for ADHD? To that, I was like, there's no way I've got ADHD. I don't think so, but I'm happy to, you're the expert. I'm happy to go ahead with that if you feel that there's something that could be of use to me also. I then went through that assessment with the same psychologist, and unremarkable results in those, as in, I think there was like a test, and it was like out of 18, the more you score, the more ADHD you are, and I got 18 out of 18. So it was a weird journey for me, because obviously I didn't expect that side of it, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to have the diagnosis, because I had gone so far in life. I was at the age of 26, so I thought, oh well, maybe the things that we know, or the things that I had personally heard prior to my diagnosis, were now in hindsight, they're all based around males, and not necessarily they don't take into account cultural things. So in answer to your question, that was the process. It's quite similar, I believe.
For me, I guess because I was so much older, because I was 46, and my parents were deceased at the time, so I didn't have anyone to give no one close anyway, to give childhood input. But I just remember there was this massive questionnaire. I mean, it was like hundreds of questions, and it literally took me 2 days, 2 different sessions to complete. I just remember I'll put it this way: in hindsight, it seems strange. Going through it, it didn't seem strange, but in hindsight, there would be random people talking to me about random stuff, which really put me kind of off. I would be sent to a room by myself, and I was very distracted in the room. I always felt like someone was watching me, but I wasn't sure. I just kept looking around the room, and I didn't know exactly what was going on. And I tried to focus on doing the test, and I'm doing the test, and then someone would run into the room and scare me. It was a strange series of events. Or someone would abruptly stop me. Yeah, and I'm just like, my God, what kind of place is this? And so I walked away pretty angry a couple times. But then on that third visit, in the final bit of assessments and the talk with the therapist, and then they introduced me to the people that I had seen the other 2 times that brought me interested. So it was all like part of it, to see how I would react, see what my behavior was. And they had this discussion. And then she was like, well, I'm sorry to say, but you're being diagnosed. You're being diagnosed as Asperger's disorder. And I'm like, oh, okay, and I just walked away, not really sure what to feel. And then I got down the road, and I pulled over, and I just burst into tears, because I always knew I was different, but I really didn't expect and didn't necessarily need a diagnosis. But now that I have it, it's like, what do you do? So my question to you is, when you found out, and like maybe a couple minutes after or whatever, how did that affect you? What did you feel like, and how did you respond?
I went into shock, which is a normal response for me. I tend to freeze, and then everything around me obviously continues. And it's now I've come to understand that it's more of a processing thing for me, which I wouldn't know without having the diagnosis.
Right.
But I definitely went into shock. I remember the first emotion that I felt was resentful. That was the main, and it was very hard because I'm one of these people, I like to be very positive in life, but
Yes.
after going through that ordeal and then receiving the diagnosis, although it was great and it was going to be beneficial for me, I did have a lot of resentment because, as you will understand, throughout your process, it's almost like therapy, intense therapy sessions, because they pull in so much of what you've gone through. So you're also, I was also highlighting things myself. So for example, university, I didn't survive at university. I was misdiagnosed at university, but in a sense, I was diagnosed with Ms. Erlin syndrome, which is it's optic sensitivity condition, but it's also linked to autism. So they had linked that together or done a bit more investigation, maybe I would have got through university, maybe I would have had a different career path. There's so many things that I did honestly feel really resentful for, and I felt that I'd been failed a lot, and there were ample opportunity to recognize and identify and to not prolong, just improve quality of life. And I feel like that would be the same with you as well.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I do remember feeling. And I just remember feeling like, okay, I was given a piece of once I received my diagnosis, it gives you a book list. These are the things you should read. It gives you the link of the National Autistic website, and that's it. That's it. Go into the world with your new diagnosis.
And good luck.
Good luck.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So that we got Joanna, and with the diagnosis so late on, have you found it helpful for you in your day-to-day life? Have you been able to access support since your diagnosis? And I suppose both of you can actually answer that, because I know, Jackie, when I met you 2013, you can explain what happened. But I think for Lauren, having your diagnosis at your age, I know there's other things that have happened we may talk about later. What's your response to that question?
I think it's been very difficult. In honesty, no, I haven't been able to access any support. In fact, it's actually worked against my favor when I have tried to access support, and I feel like that is because there is such a barrier of understanding. Personally, I face issues trying to get support in all aspects of my life, because I found that I'm very articulate. So there's a disbelief. There's also, people are mind boggled. It's like, you need help?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, I do.
Right.
So yeah, no, it's been very, very difficult to access support. It's been a very, very hard journey, to be honest.
All right, I'll come in here. So basically, the reason why I asked that question, because when I met you on Monday, to show how sometimes if I was a person who didn't understand, and what did I say? I said, who's diagnosed, your son and your daughter? And you said, I am.
It's me.
And then I said, oh, okay, would you like to come down? And you came down within 45 minutes, if I can remember. Now, what I'm trying to get at is, a lot of people assume because an autistic person who seems to be abled, seems to be okay, what is on the outside looks to be okay, but they don't realize what's going on the inside. And I know you had a bit of a shutdown, and you went in the corner, and it was Beverly and Vida, who was with me, spoke to you, and I stepped back a bit because I felt I didn't want to overpower you. How did you feel when you realized that you was at a place where people just seemed to be there for you? Have you ever had that before?
No, I haven't had that.
So for 2 years, okay.
Yeah, no, I haven't had that for 2 years. That I just felt overwhelmed, but in such a welcoming way. It was like, okay, it's not the end of it. I'll briefly just let people know that are listening. I was sectioned in July, this year just gone, and that was personally, it was treated as a psychotic episode. Personally, and this is what I endeavour to do more research in. I really feel that the way that Black women in particular present, I feel that there's a huge crossover with psychosis, when actually you can align most of those attributes to an autistic meltdown. It's just different in the way that I would present as a woman of colour to somebody who it doesn't come from the same background as me, hasn't had the same life experiences as me. And I think that's something that we really need to work on, to get an understanding, a general understanding, so that we can all help each other to move forward.
Thank you. Because like I turned around and said to Jackie, when I met Jackie, my problem was at the time, my issues was that as a parent was isolation, not being believed, to be told I was exaggerating my son's behavior. I'd be on a Skype and Jackie would see my son, the one that you saw just earlier, jumping across me, and something she said made me realize that how much Jackie really, really got to know me, because a couple of weeks back, I think on our last recording, she said she remembered that I was very calm. You hear, the background was very peaceful. There was no arguing apart from when Nathaniel did something. But I have to say that it shows that in 2020, how if professionals get it wrong, if Black people misunderstand what autism is and they're quick to think they can fix autism, and to see my children, I mean, most of the time you hear a lot of screaming, shouting, challenges. You wouldn't hear that years ago. So when people talk about it's because of single parenting, sometimes it's not. It's because parents let down their children, because especially if they, as you said, like with your situation is you got a late diagnosis even though your siblings had an early diagnosis. So this is what we need to understand in the white community, the white autistic community, the Black community. Professionals all need to understand. You can't just assume just because you see anybody walking and talking. But for women in particular who do have, who have families rearing their children. I mean, like I said, with Jackie's situation, as she said, Jackie's response was, when she said it to me, is that she was going to give up. But when I outreached to her, because I was at my lowest, where I just want to talk to nobody, and Jackie was the person in America that said, Venessa, I've got autism. I was like, whoa, wow. And that's where we was able to do a blog. So to me, we've got to learn to listen. So Jackie, you can explain a little bit more, because I know people may not have seen the other video.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, I had come to a point, because I had not had my diagnosis that long. I think maybe it had been a year or so by the time I met you, Venessa. Yeah, because I'm coming up on 10 years, I think, next year. So I had been very outward with it. I thought it would be a welcoming thing. I welcomed it. I embraced it. I said, okay, well, this explains a lot of things. So I'll go out into the world and I'll let people know, what's going on with me. And then we'll be able to work this thing out together. And what I got was shunned. I were the responses like, well, why would you be stupid enough to tell somebody you're autistic when you don't look autistic? I've got, basically you better chuck it up and figure it out. And there's no help for you. So by the time I met Venessa, I mean, it was a welcome. I was so glad to meet her and everything. But in talking to her and seeing what she was going through and seeing her passion for her kids, which I grew up in a household where if there was love, it wasn't a correct love. Okay? And it wasn't a love that felt good. I wasn't nurtured and I did not feel safe at any given time. So to be actually talking to a person that I actually admitted that I was autistic to and felt safe, she never once ever judged me. She never once questioned, even though I showed her my paperwork just in case she didn't believe me. We had been talking for a while, and I was like, "Here's
Yeah.
my paperwork. This is my diagnosis." Um, but she never judged me, and she always seemed to have an understanding.
Mm.
Saying, and she never asked me things like, "Why is your house dark?" Because, because I have a sensitivity to light, so I don't like a lot of artificial light. But she gave me hope after dealing with her, because I was ready to just kind of withdraw and just say, I'll never mention to anyone else again in life that I'm autistic.
Mm.
And I'll just go on. I mean, I was fine beforehand. I'll be fine again. But talking to her and her encouraging me to do that interview really gave me the courage to embrace myself, whether people like me or not, but to realize there was a bigger picture and maybe I needed to know, my situation so I could grow and help someone else,
Mm.
in their situation. And so I've been very vocal about it ever since. As a matter of fact, but was that before the UN or after? I can't remember because I remember Jacqueline Adenbaum from the United Nations was looking for some diverse speakers to celebrate the Autism Awareness Day. And she put in Black and autistic, and I was the only person that showed up,
Mhm.
which is
I
crazy.
can,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I
but
can
I just
believe that.
happened to started. I was blogging and whatnot at the time, and it just happened. It just so happened that she found me on Autism, found me on Facebook. So I needless to say, I am very thrilled that I'm seeing more Black people come forth. I thought yesterday's webinar was just, I felt like I was in a dream state because
Marcus
two
and
Black
yeah.
men, to come out. And now here we are tonight, the three of us. And I'm excited for our future, and I'm excited for the future of autism in the Black community, and that we can see benefit instead of deficit. So, yeah.
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, I'm not diagnosed with autism. I speak on behalf of my daughters. My youngest one was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, epilepsy, and sleeping disorder and eating disorder between 2017 and 2018. Because when it comes to our children, girls in particular, but then when you add in the race and ethnicity, there's another layer that gets overlooked. So it's
Yeah.
so important that when people in the communities feel that we're being racist and we seem to be thinking we're demanding, no, we're not. We're just asking for that little help. Because for me, it's taken me 12 years to be heard, 12 years to go through a lot of frustration and anger. But the anger that I have, and I think somebody actually put, what's the resentment? I think for me, the resentment was not being believed. The resentment is the fact that my daughter left at 14 to come back at 16, 5 months pregnant, but it took me 3 more months that I had to deliver my grandson at home. I didn't get the support for that. So if I wasn't how I was, if I didn't meet Jackie, if I didn't meet all the autistic people, whether they were Black, Asian, white, on my journey, I don't think I was able to handle when my youngest was diagnosed. But I was more upset all the years in primary school. She was told she was mentally ill, she was stupid, she's lazy, she could do better. She got excluded. So all the things with my little one. And then obviously when I listen to Lauren, I get it, I understand it. When I hear Jackie's story, both had a diagnosis later on, but when you listen to both their stories, even Marcus and John yesterday, all may have a diagnosis, but all have the same experiences of when it comes to the cultural needs and wants of an autistic person. It's so important because if your child grows up in an area where there's racism, they will grow up breeding hatred.
Mm.
Now we got to be honest. We have to be very careful what we teach our children. So for me, I'm just thanking Jackie and Lauren. I'm going to stay quiet in the background because I am really tired. But I just think between the two of them, I just wanted them to talk. It's more about talking about friendships. It's talking about relationships. It's about family. How did your family? I mean, I know about Jackie, but with you, Lauren, it's the question of. I mean, it's all about you, really, because I know me and Jackie always rambling all the
Hmm.
time. This
Yeah.
is your platform, and it's about you talking about. If you want us to prompt you, because I know people, we got 12 people on this tonight. Usually, it's just me and Jackie. We don't invite nobody.
Okay.
But so, I mean, the first question I
If
just wanted to
people,
start.
yeah.
I suppose the first one could be is what challenges you have at school? That's what I should ask you.
So at school, I would say my biggest challenge was being the outcast. I did not fit in. I think where it's different for me personally, I didn't fit in because I was very clever. I was always bullied for being a smart ass or a know-it-all. I was always outcast from groups, just because I had such an interest in being clever. I was a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
I would cry if I got 99% in a test. It did happen. That was me. And it was very isolating. And I think, as I expressed to you the other day, Venessa, at the time, I was in a predominantly white school. So I was one of the only Black children there.
Like my son, yeah.
So initially it was perceived as a race thing. And obviously as a child, you know, being bullied in itself is not fun. you don't even know how to begin to comprehend that, because you haven't begun your journey in the world yet. So all you know is that you're just being attacked for being you, for just existing. So then on top of that, to, you know, have the race element inside, or just because there was nothing bad that I was doing, I was just being attacked. It builds up a lot of, well, it's one of those things, I guess you sink or swim. For me, I had to build up a lot of resilience, and I had to build up almost a not to care, to be alone. Just that's how I was taught, basically. Just embrace yourself. People are going to have an opinion. Just be you and be true to yourself. And I carried that through. But I mean, it was extremely difficult. I ended up leaving one school from being bullied. I was physically attacked several times, and it always seemed to be boys as well. I was physically attacked. I ended up developing alopecia at 11. So I used to have really long curly hair, and I woke up one morning, I had bald patches at the front, in the middle, and I had no eyelashes. So with that on top of the going through the bullying, I ended up moving schools. Then there's the resettling, which never happened. But what I do want to get across is that for me, I feel like school, even though it was difficult, educationally, I did very well, and I was always doing well. So I feel like that's how I was missed in that sense, because I was an overachiever. I was always at the after school clubs. I even I did work with the Metropolitan Police and sat in the Parliament. You know, I was very vocal and outspoken. So it's to link that to now and being an adult, I understand in hindsight. I'm not agreeing with it, but I understand why, based on the structure that's already in place and the criteria that's there, I understand how it was missed for myself. And I understand how people like me are often missed and misdiagnosed. School was horrible. It was horrible.
I can relate to that in regards to my daughters. Jackie, would you like to say something?
Yeah, you just kind of took me down memory lane, because bullying was definitely a very prevalent part of my life. But my initial bullies were my parents. So the bullying that I dealt with away from home was not as bad as what I had to deal with at home. So I could weather it. And a lot of people, even today, that know me and have seen me in extremely stressful situations, and they always say, "My God, you're always so calm." I'm calm because my entire life has been like a pressure cooker kind of life. I'm always in a very tense, stressful situation, whether it's something external or internal. There's always, I mean, I'm going through tense situations right now, but you just learn how to be calm. I had to be calm growing up because my parents were both very volatile kind of people. So you couldn't show anything. I didn't really show emotions, but I couldn't really speak up when I needed to, especially if I was being wrongfully accused. And then, to be honest, I didn't have to be accused. If they just wanted to put their hands on me any kind of way they wanted to, they just did. And there was nothing I could do about it, and there was no help. So, moving fast forward to right now, like when I got my diagnosis and seeking help, at the time I was in therapy, and my therapist, fortunately, was one who was well versed with dealing with people on the spectrum. So she was a great help in trying to help me decipher what was actually autism and what was due to the trauma. And a lot of it was very tightly interwoven. Outside of that, I did not have any help, and I couldn't get help from a church that I was attending, where I was very wrongfully treated there as well. So, but I am a person who, I guess I've always been forced to problem solve. So I don't really depend on help. I just figure it out. And if it takes me a long time, it takes me a long time. But I'm constantly trying to figure out how to cope with things. Yeah.
It would be nice if there was some sort of manual to say, here you go. This is how you deal with it. These are the first steps.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll tell you this, though. The first step is, with anything, is to accept yourself and accept being imperfect, because it's just one of the natural things of life. And the second is reaching out, like now, when you have people like Venessa who reach out and talk to you, and actually taking the help. Now, I will say that I have loaned myself as a help or a mentor to many people. Sometimes they may call me once and not call again. Sometimes they don't call at all. And I'll say this to anyone: you can't get help if you're not willing to receive the help that's offered to you. So you are one who you were willing to receive it. You reached out, you're here tonight. Not that we're here to quote unquote help you, but just to be able to talk to someone who understands. I do have friends now, locally and around as well, abroad, as well as abroad, that I can talk to, and I can talk about those intricate little things, my little aspy things that I may not want to talk about with someone who's neurotypical or out in public, and I can talk to that person and they totally get it. You know,
you
what
don't
I'm
have
saying?
to keep explaining
No,
each part. Yeah.
And that's what I want to be for you. I want to be, you know, if you just want to call and just talk about your aspiness, or just vent, or just talk about, I'm like, just talk it out. You know what I'm saying? Because I get it.
I've got another question.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
What advice can we give to professionals? Because I know that you got the, on one hand, I can be honest, is that I had a lot of my trauma from what I read about me, my children's files from Black professionals. There was things like I bring my baggage and attitude to the school. Or another one was, I said it yesterday, what did it put? My anxiety exasperates my son's behavior due to my childhood trauma. They never mentioned about the autism. It seems to be that once they know that you've experienced childhood abuse, or whatever it is, they seem to forget about the diagnosis of the child, and all the focus is on you, the parent, or the young person or the adult. So my question is, how can we get professionals, especially in COVID, because all these things that have happened over the last 6 7 months, autistic people have been just seem to be pushed to the wayside. They've been sort of put under the same bracket as disabilities and learning disabilities, but they don't realize there's a lot of autistic people out there who just need reassuring. You know, for me to do all these Zooms for the last how many months, all I've got back is, especially in the Black community, we need someone that we can talk to that looks like us. And if I go to a lot of the um, regular autistic groups, I think they feel offended because when I'm saying Black mothers, Black autistic men want someone that looks like them.
Right.
What advice can we give to professionals and Black professionals as well, in particular?
Want to start, Lauren? Or shall I?
In my inexperienced opinion, I feel like we definitely need to do research. It needs to have been done a long time ago. I think with the extensive research needs to be conducted into people that actually experience, so Black people that actually experience, other ethnicities that experience these things, because predominantly all of the research is on white people. A lot of the information that's out there, it only shows white people. As you've said, there's nobody of color to associate yourself to, so it's quite isolating, especially as someone who's newly diagnosed, when you're going through all of this information. And yes, the guidelines may be vaguely relevant, but then I just found my head like, okay, but there's so many you know, that there's so much more body to that, for example.
Right.
Yeah. I've even lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay. It's
Don't
okay.
worry,
I
don't
get
worry,
it.
don't worry.
Yeah, I get it. I'll pick up where you left off. Well, for me, one of the things, and this is the way I see, because I see things in a very broad sense. So it's not just that I have a message to the professionals, and they can't help the fact that they are already at a disadvantage because they were not taught to look beyond certain lines. Yeah, and so we need to start that process, and plus you add that with just the regular human condition, because the basic human condition is when you see something or someone that appears to be broken or not normal, that person or that object loses value. And so oftentimes just being valued is part of the process, because if people value you, then they'll actually want to try to help you. So being black, and in my case, being fat, being female, and then being autistic, I have zero value. So a lot of times, a lot of energy is not going to be put into a person like me. So we have to first be able to value ourselves enough to fight for it. And if we can't get it from other people, then we create the source within ourselves. And then we outsource it and help to educate people. Now, that being said, we talk about we need more science. Sure, science is involved, but you also have to understand that science is led by popular opinion. Whatever is commercial, then that is what the science tends to go, because that brings science dollars in. So anything that's commercial, and we know that most of the time things that are commercial are commercialized by white audiences. So if it's more prevalent in the, I guess, the major contributing factors, which are being white and looking at that, then that's what's going to be the draw. A lot of stuff is seen, but a lot of stuff is in somebody's notebook that's stacked up in boxes somewhere, and those things will not come out until much later on. That's why it's like 10 years, ago, 10, 20 years ago, they couldn't fathom, many women, with the exception to a few, many women being autistic. Now, all of a sudden, it's like you see more and more information coming up. Well, somebody actually went in the closet and pulled out the box and read through all those notes and said, oh, yeah, let's look at this and expound on this. But how many boxes deep are we buried in terms of information about being Black and being autistic? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So the thing is, I don't know how we combat that other than to try to weather and, first of all, feel value about ourselves. We have to start educating our children to and kind of guiding them to get more into the sciences and whatnot, because this is their life that they're looking at. And I'd rather that they see me through their lens than someone outside of my ethnicity trying to figure me out. And then after that, not giving in to the powers that be and following the dollars, but actually looking at how many times are we hearing that this particular thing is coming up, and looking at how many races, how many ethnicities this thing is coming up, and really looking at that and forgetting about the dollars and actually making science real. If we stop letting science shoot us in the foot, we'll actually get much further along. But there's nothing wrong with science. The problem is the person who's actually yielding the science that's holding us back.
Absolutely.
I've got one comment.
But I was going to say,
Lauren.
Based on what you said, it's very interesting because from my experience, I'd say, so I was diagnosed in 2018 through, I kind of floated through, well, I actually got my diagnosis at the end of 2018. So I floated through, I'd say about a quarter of a year. And then I went through quite a turbulent family breakdown. I then relocated back to London, and it's then that I said, you know what, okay, I don't have my family network here. I'm back with my social circles. Let me start, trying to educate those around me, so that same thing that you said earlier, so that we can all kind of work together and figure this out to go forward, because I'm such a morally person. I just like, okay, if I was going through this, I want to make sure that I improve the experience of anybody else like me that's going to go through this in any way that I can. So then I would start to, in my interpersonal relationships, I would you know, when you spend more time around people, things become more apparent. And since I've had the diagnosis, it's like, okay, I'm owning this. This is me. If I know why, if I can, you know, for example, people would say, why are you like this? Or why do you always do that? So then when I start to say, well, actually, this is a presentation of my autism. And then it's almost like people don't, once you start to educate people, in my personal journey, once I tried to educate people around me, it's like nobody was interested. And I feel it's because they're not necessarily impacted. So it's like, okay, well, let me start trying to reach out to find other people like me, because then maybe we can work together and do something. And it's, again,
it's difficult because there's a lot of backbiting and there's a lot of theft of ideas, but that's a condition that we developed from the trauma of being Black and the Black experience, and we do not know how to connect and trust each other. But that's the way it was. That's the way it was created. We weren't supposed to trust each other, because if we trusted each other and stood up, then we would progress quicker. So we have to be, you know, divide and conquer, and we haven't figured out how to come together again yet.
Some of us are.
Yeah.
Some of us are.
Yeah.
There is a few of us out there. We're all coming together hopefully soon.
Absolutely. And I hope there'll be more. I notice when I talk to professionals in the field, maybe not in my area and they don't know me well, but we'll talk around each other. We never really tell each other exactly what it is that we're doing or how we're doing it. And we never really say exactly who it is we're talking to. We just kind of talk around it in circles. And then we never really come to a conclusion of, can we meet and just share notes and move forward? It just never really seems to happen.
It's unfortunate. It really is, because through my journey, once I'd kind of accepted that nobody cared, I then took it all on myself in my true Aspie style and just completely overloaded myself to the point where I had a complete meltdown, breakdown. Then services were involved, and the services that were involved, although I was breaking down, and although I was in some sort of state, the intervention that they came with and the help that they came with was very counterproductive, and it prolonged. It just really, it traumatized me. For example, I was put in handcuffs. I'm not a criminal. I've had 4 officers putting me in handcuffs on my doorstep. I'm fighting. I'm going to fight. You know, I'm asking, am I being detained? What on earth is going on? What is actually going on? And you're not getting those answers. So I feel like there was a lot to be learned from the police that dealt with me, from where they took me to the hospital. It's like, although it was a safe place, I kept saying, this is not safe for me. I am overloaded. You are touching me. You've got 20 people watching me. And you think I'm going... how can you guys are meant to be professionals? How do you not understand that you guys are causing detriment to my health? You're causing detriment to my condition right now. You're not going to get any kind of response from me that you're expecting, because I'm so overloaded right now. Did none of you know what my conditions are? It was really difficult
they might
to
not
comprehend.
have dealt with enough people who are like you that are able to really verbalize that right then and there and in the moment. So you did help them, but the thing is, it's not enough help. We have a thing here called CIT, is the Crisis Intervention Team, where we actually train police officers and first responders how to better deal with people that have mental illness, people that are, you know, autistic, or have intellectual disability, or have substance use. Now, the very interesting thing I find that is that, you know, and I actually do some of the training for the Autism IDD. The interesting thing is, as I continue talking and broaching and talking about mental illness and the fact that mental illness can be comorbid to autism, and that suicide and suicidal ideation is very high, very prevalent in the autistic society, in the autistic community. And it's not just the quote unquote high functioning, it's all of us. At any given time, it can experience suicidal ideation. And when I turn to larger entities and say, what can you do to advocate to get more help and supports for people when we do have those breakdowns and when we do have that kind of thing happen to us, because everything is just coming in on us and we can't stop. And basically what I'm getting now, and I've gotten just recently, as in this week, is, well, we can talk about it. And, well, no, we don't really look at that because, well, autism is kind of a different thing. I said, well, okay, I know autism is not a mental illness, but what happened to the fact that people who are autistic can experience mental illness? What about that? Well, we don't really know about that. We can talk about it, but talking about it is not saving lives. And we're still
No.
experiencing mental illness, and we're experiencing mental illness in the home, in the workplace, with regard to our children, with regard to everything. And there's no one who's willing to say, let's stop and really develop something for this. I just wish, and even, and one more thing, there are some universities that do have an extensive program where they are talking to people who are on the autism spectrum, and they get to meet with the students, PhD and master students. But this is the click. The person who has the autism has to have a degree. So you have
Wow.
discounted everybody else. Okay. So if you don't have a degree, at least, PhD, master's, something, if you don't have that, then you don't get to be heard. So how many people are you leaving out that could give you valuable information? Once again, we have been devalued because there's a quote unquote deficit of some sort deemed by someone else. And that's all I have to say on that.
Um, can I read this? Somebody's just written. Can I read it for you?
I'm trying to read them as they pop
All
up.
right,
Yeah.
I'll read this one for you. I think it's interesting because an aspect of accepting self is also a journey of reframing the past, understanding the past through a new lens. In my experience, there was a sense of loss that comes with that, and perhaps some anger that what was thought wasn't the reality. For instance, trying to be normal, which is neurotypical, and not understanding why this was a struggle. I am now thinking that there needs to be a trauma informed approach to enable people to heal their undiagnosed past with their current and future diagnosed reality. Not a question, but I welcome your thoughts. Again, I just think, I mean, like I said, we didn't want to overwhelm Lauren because we know that, she was a bit, I wouldn't say hesitant to do it tonight. She wanted to. So I'm leaving
I
it to you.
wanted to do it. I'm extremely anxious. I don't know if anyone can see, but
I'm watching you. I'm watching you to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, but that's me. I've lived with anxiety, so it's just one of those things. But I agree with that statement. I do. I feel like, yeah, it is. If there were more support, and I feel like there is a lot of trauma that's associated to exactly how that person put it. Honestly, it's very overwhelming to know that people really are experiencing the same things, because obviously you stay in your group and you may be the only person that's diagnosed, especially coming from the Black community. And as you mentioned earlier, Jackie, I'm personally unable to communicate with anybody around me as to anything that I experience in my world as I'm existing amongst everybody else. So
it's very difficult.
Well, you've got us now, and I think just to let everybody know, the one thing you did say to me on Monday was, first thing is that you wanted to get back into your I won't even say charity, your campaign, Smart Off. Do you want to say a little bit about that? Because I know there's some people on here, maybe bid writers that who may be able to support you in, and I know there's somebody on here that may be able to help you in your what you want to do to get your voice out there as a young Black autistic person.
So let me grab. So Mask Off is basically, it's a campaign that I have in my heart, in my mind, in my heart. It's very close to me, and basically I had the idea as soon as I was diagnosed, because of the way that I was diagnosed and things that I've expressed tonight with, with relation to resentment and, feeling that loss, feeling like you could have been many other places. It's more to raise awareness about the condition. And also it's not just that condition. I have other comorbid conditions with my
My mic went off. That's Jessie. Jesse's very
okay, so I'm stumbling. It was for me to basically educate, raise awareness, empower other people, specifically Black people, specifically women. And initially where it started, I wasn't aware of any others other than my younger siblings. So it's just to be that voice, because I am extremely outspoken. I am very, like I said, I've got such a strong sense of justice, and I would like to know that, as I said, nobody would have to go through the same journey as me. Nobody would have to go through it alone. Nobody would sit and think back on their exam grades and think, well, had I have known then, I could have done much better. You know, you shouldn't be questioning yourself. Sorry, I'm really fumbling.
No,
you're doing great.
I think from speaking to you on Monday, basically what you were trying to say is that when you met me, and I'm always going to go back to the National Autism Society, because it took years for me to have meetings with them, and it wasn't just me. It was Dr. Ken Greaves. There was lots of other Black professionals, well, people that they were approaching, but you had to get it right. And it just shows that sometimes behind closed doors, you know, the time wasn't right. But I feel the time when Lauren called me and she came down, and as I said, she had a shutdown, because like she said, it was overwhelmed. I would think of excitement, to know, oh my gosh, somebody is listening to me. A lot of the time for me is I can't say no. I've got to learn to start saying no. But for me, I couldn't say, I didn't want to say to her, I can't help you. I just said, you know what, come down, let me see what I can do. And straight away when I met her, and I did say it to her, when people look at her, oh, you can't be autistic because of how she looks. You know, the picture that I put, it's that thing, don't judge a book by its cover. And then because you see Jackie and Lauren, even though when you hear Jessie, John, Marcus, you know, there's Melissa, there's so many Black autistic men and women that I've spoke to. And the one thing they've all had in common is the same journey of, because they look okay, there's nothing wrong. But what we need to understand is, if I had a camera at that moment when you saw Lauren in the corner, curled up, to me, it didn't mean nothing. It didn't mean nothing to me, because I understand it. But for somebody who doesn't understand autism, and they're walking down the road and saw her in the corner, they will think automatically, is she mad? What's wrong? Is she emotional? So the emotion of an autistic person going through a trauma sometimes is very different to somebody who is neurotypical. And I think for me, I was happy that I was able to help her, but I felt I needed to do more. And automatically I said, let me get Jackie, because I know Jackie's one of the, I would say, maturer mothers. I'll say mature, I won't say old, maturer, because as a Black mature person, because I do know a lot of mature white women, but I know that with Lauren, she wanted somebody that looked like her, who's had the experience. And I think all I wanted to do today, as I said to her, me and Jackie usually meet on a late night. I wasn't going to advertise it, but then when I advertised it last night, a few people said, can we listen in? So that's why I said to Lauren, you know, it's about you. I don't want to overpower. Usually me and Jackie could be here till about 3-4 in the morning, because my children are still up. We ain't going to do that tonight. We're going to probably just, we're probably going to finish about 12, the next 8 minutes, so that we can know that, hopefully we can do another session like this. And then from here, we can take it to another level, and then ask questions. And maybe if you're happy to go into a group and then, talk to people, or just stay in the background, very quiet, and then get comfortable, because it's very different when you're in a gallery of people. It can be very overwhelming. And I know that from other autistic people that I met. So how do you feel tonight, now that you got a chance to speak?
I feel good. I hope anybody can relate to me. I hope there's at least one person that's watched or will see this footage and it will help them, and in any way, even if it's just to reach out and have a chat with somebody who goes through the same things that you go through. What I didn't say with regards to when I saw you on Monday just now is that in terms of the mask off, it's I really want to go into services, and I really want to not only just highlight the disparities that we face and the disproportions, the late diagnosis. I want to make a change to that. And if that means giving myself in some way, whether it's for research, whether it's just as to create a support network for more people in my age group, more people that have common, whatever it is, that is what I'm for. Because, you know, I've got younger siblings, I've got other younger relatives, and like I've said, I really wouldn't want them to go through the same things that I've gone through prior to my diagnosis, and now in the early stages of my diagnosis that I've experienced. Not saying that I'm very happy with the diagnosis. Thank you. I'm very happy with the diagnosis. I embrace it. I love being me. I do. We're very special people.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hurtful that there isn't enough support in our community, enough understanding in our communities to enable us to then move forward and, you know, almost help. It's almost like a ladder, isn't it?
Yeah.
You
Well, the
need.
thing is, we're all connected, and that's why it's like you're not only helping people like us that are on the spectrum, but you are helping people that are loved ones and professionals and people who are outside of us trying to kind of figure it all out. The more we talk, the more they'll be able to help us. And that's what it's all about, just talking and just helping people to understand. And, you know, to say this, I'm not against professionals. I just think that professionals need to have more exposure to people who are on the spectrum, and to really listen to us and not be bound by if someone has degrees or not, because we all bring value to the pot. We all, you know, if you're an expert, then be an expert and really listen to the true experts of autism. And that's the people who actually live it every day.
Every single day.
Listen to us. Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Just to let you know, and I did say to Lauren, um, I did apply for some funding, and the funding came through this week. It was like 3 months, 4 months late, and it is in aid of supporting and working with professionals in with the NHS England. I'm gonna put the plug out there, and it's how we can support the, I don't like to use that word, BAME, but I'm gonna say it, African, Caribbean, Asian, and minority ethnic community. In regards to COVID, how we can do prevention and avoidance. And I did say to Lauren, I think your experience is going to be phenomenal. But reason being, she's a person that went into, got sections. She knows what it feels like to be detained by the police. We talk about police brutality, but I'm not going to go there because I feel at the moment, as a community, we've got to look at how we ourselves as well engage. Because if we, it always goes back to the home. It goes back to basic. Is if we don't accept autism, and then
Right.
our children go into the community and get abused by the system, and they're getting abused at home, how
Yeah.
can we blame the community system? So for
Right.
me, what I'm going to do is I've got a selection of Black autistic, Black Asian, minority ethnic communities are going to come together, and it's how we can engage. It's me and my friend Hannah Otto from Send Parenting, and what we're going to be doing is doing a program to train professionals, but my focus as well is how we can engage parents if the child gets diagnosed early. I just
Yeah.
think it's so important that I know who to signpost to, who to know who's the go-to person. I'm not going to just go to anybody. I haven't got time to waste because I've seen what's happened to my daughter, my oldest daughter. You know, having a baby and being 19, a 3-year-old, she needs help. And the services for teen mums is bad. Let alone if you're a teen autistic mum and a
Right.
Black mum, it's even
Right.
worse. So for
Right.
me, I just feel that layers over layers is, you know, today was just basically saying that I'm not going to stop. I just need more people to come forward. Again, like I said, I was always relying on Jackie. Jackie was my bouncing board most of the time when I needed Black support, because in the
Yeah.
UK I wasn't getting it. I was getting it from Naz, but again, as I said, we need representation. You know, people don't understand when we say
Right.
culture needs and wants. And I think for Lauren, I just say, I said to me and Jackie said the other day, she could be our daughter. That's how bad it was. I said, oh
Yeah.
my God, you could be my daughter. I feel old. But I'm just happy that I got a chance that we met you, Lauren. I know we're in COVID,
Yeah.
but maybe if there was no COVID, we may have never met. So I think the positive thing
Right.
of 2020, more black people have come forward, more black professionals are coming forward as well.
Yes.
And it shows that, and even black bidders, I know somebody on this, I think they want to talk to you, and I know who they are, Joanna, and I think she would be a good person that can talk to you and help you with your campaign. And I know she's not talk, I know she walks the talk, talk the walk. I'll connect you to her on Facebook, and I'm sure she will find you as well. But I'll connect her with you. But like I said to everybody, I don't want to overwhelm Lauren. She may say she's okay, but I know she may be like with my children, they're okay. And then when everything closes off, she may go into that little
My
bubble.
hands are like this.
Exactly. And we may not be there to console her. So I feel that what we need to do is just, time out and just let you just say
Yeah.
any last words of encouragement, Jackie, to Lauren? And I just saying thank you for joining us. Lauren, Jackie, anything to say to Lauren?
Well, Lauren, I'm here for you. I mean, even tonight, if you, after we leave this session and you have that moment to kind of like defrag and center yourself, if you
Mhm.
need to, give me a call. We could talk or, whatever. Just drop me a line or, text or anything. Or I might just text you just some comforting words. It's going to be all
Yeah.
right. I am
Cool.
so very proud of you. I think you have done an amazing job tonight.
Thank
Regardless
you.
of what your mind and what your intuitive self is telling you,
Yeah.
you really did an awesome thing
Thank
tonight.
you.
Hmm.
Thank you, guys. I'm looking at the names that have popped up. It just shows that, imagine we only did this in one night, and the
Mm.
people that have joined us, it shows. I'm sure if we did this in the daytime, we had more people. But like I said, I wanted to make sure Jackie, obviously in America, 7 o'clock. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that she could sort out her son. And then maybe we can come back on, bring John Paul, Jesse. I may just bring all the autistic people together, because lots of autistic people saying, Vanessa, can we come on? So maybe we're to do another evening of just
Sure.
chilling. Okay. So thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you soon because I am really tired.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for putting
welcoming
it
me.
together.
Thank you for welcoming me and for the journeys that are to come.
It's okay, and we'll
Yes.
find you on
Yes.
Facebook, which is Mask Off.
Yes, I don't have
Yes.
any content on there at the moment because I'm dealing with COVID
Don't worry, we're there
issues.
to help
Right.
you.
It's okay. No pressure. No pressure.
Thank you. See you
Thank
later,
Okay.
you.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.